Do you take pleasure in others' misery, or do you rather enjoy the small things in life? Well, in this episode of the Existential Stoic Podcast, we are going to discuss those two topics. Taking pleasure in others' misery, which can be exceedingly fun sometimes, although kind of bad for you. Maybe we'll talk about that. And
We'll get there.
how to find the good in life. Always look on the sunny side of life. This is the Existential Stoic Podcast. I'm Randy. That's Danny. What's going on, Danny?
What's up, Randy? Yeah, I want to give a shout out to listener John B for this episode topic suggestion, which is a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like this one because I think this is something I think especially like the pleasure from other people's misfortune is like something that like we promote and
Mm-hmm.
have promoted for a long time, and it's kind of screwed up if you think about it. But it's especially because the concept is especially like you know apt, I think, when you're looking at people that like you envy for some reason. So like have more than
Yeah.
you or whatever, like people with
Mm-hmm.
a lot of money, famous people, whatever. And like I think people do get off from that a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely comes along with the envy because it's not everybody. Like I was just thinking about how we have these mirror neurons in our brains, so we feel stuff that other people feel
Yeah.
if if we think that they're human. But like a lot of times when we are envious or jealous of someone, we discount their humanity and then their pain becomes our pleasure. But I was just thinking of like I watch Fail Army a lot on YouTube. And dude, when some of these people crash, like I feel it viscerally. I'm just like, oh
Oh yeah.
gosh. Yeah.
Well, it's like, it's funny. I was thinking about that. We were watching, uh, we were watching some of the Olympics the other night, and one of the snowboarders fell and like had done his whole run, was awesome. It was the last trick, and like
Uh,
we were both like, oh God, like that's because you feel like you've done all this work,
dude,
right? You
18
can
plus years
sympathize.
of like
Yeah,
and the last
yeah,
freaking thing. Yeah. That's
yeah. You can
terrible.
sympathize with it, right? So that's like I think situations where like you're right. I think that's the big thing is the dehumanization. Like, do you see this person as a person or not? And it's
Hmm.
interesting, I think, why we dehumanize people, especially that are like famous and stuff or have a lot that we do envy. Why is there that connection, do you think, to
Well,
kind of treat them as less or
that's an
think of them as
interesting
not person?
question that like why we actually have this drive as humans evolutionarily. Why does it come about? Because you think for the most part you want better for everybody because it actually I take that back. It comes because we have this competitive mindset that
We
we
do,
think
yeah.
that if somebody else gets something, it means there's less for me. Now, think what you will, but that can't be proven true because, you listen to like Tao Te Ching or whatever, we live in this infinite universe
Yeah.
and everything comes out of nothing and goes back into nothing. But if it comes out of nothing, there's not a limited supply.
Yeah, I mean it's funny because that's like kind of also cultural too, like what we're told, right? Like, the US is very big on promoting that kind of mindset where like everybody's fending for themselves. And so there is a sense in which if somebody else gets the thing that you want, that's less there than for you, right? Which is kind of weird when you think about it because
Well,
there is a lot.
yeah, it's like that whole saying, keeping up with the Joneses. I always found that so crazy because it's like, why do you even care what race the other people are running?
Yeah, right. Exactly. If it's not a race you're interested in, why do you give a
Yeah.
rat's ass about it, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah, it's very weird, but I think with this also like our cultures also promote very extreme greed and stuff too. And so there are people with, tons of stuff, excessive amounts of stuff. And
Hmm.
I think it's also interesting because I think the other side of this too is like I was thinking about this, like, like all those like what are those? I can't think of the name now. The tabloids, like tabloid magazines, like TMZ, all these things that like the paparazzi, all these things that
Hmm.
like literally like follow these people around and especially try to get them in, situations where
Compromising
something like,
situations. Yeah.
yeah, embarrassing, where they look bad, whatever, because that's what we love to see these people fail. And part of it, I think, is also that, it's this feeling like, well, you have all that stuff, you kind of deserve it
Hmm.
almost. Yeah, which is kind of a weird thing to think.
Yeah. I thought about in my life where I have, so the term is Schadenfreude or something like that. It's
Yeah.
some German term. I can't say it, pronounce it correctly. But there have been times in my life where I felt it. And I find it particularly strong in situations where people have hurt me, either physically or emotionally or in some way. Like I think it's divine retribution. And just the thought of them being in pain or suffering causes me immense pleasure. And so that's where I feel it most
No,
of the
I think
time.
that's true, right? I feel it a lot in these situations too, where like you feel like it's like they're getting their like it's like almost like cosmic justice of some sort of
Mm.
karma, right? Like
Hmm.
they're getting what they deserve because of how they live their lives or what they've done.
Hmm.
You know, and I think maybe that's what we when we like with these like large people like the personas like the celebrities, the very ultra wealthy because we see them so much and stuff on TV and in the news, maybe that's part of that. It's like we kind of some part of us feels like they maybe deserve it because they have so much that maybe it's like, well, you kind of deserve some crap in your life too or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's kind of funny.
probably. Probably.
Yeah.
But then again, so like we're all reading the Tao Te Ching together and it talks about how like remember that we all come like the a lot of the problems come because we identify the self as the self. And it's like
Yeah.
when you identify the self as the world and remember where we all come from and where we all go back to, then you stop worrying so much about all of this because then you can actually see it like
Yeah.
if somebody's suffering, that's you suffering, essentially.
Well, dude, that verse that says too, the one is so I think poignant for today when it says I'm not going to get it exactly right, but it's like, if if you put gold in like a safe or like you do these things like
Right.
people will want it,
If you
right? I can't remember the
overvalue
exact.
possessions, people start to
Yeah,
steal. Hmm.
exactly, right? Like so like if we because we make all these things like we throw it in people's faces all the time, like money, all this cool stuff and whatever that they can't have. It's like they envy it, want it, they're jealous of it, right? So it's easy to get caught up in that and then feel good when these
Yeah.
people suffer.
Yeah, I think about that all the time. I'm like, what type of a world do we live in where it's like stealing up to $1,000 is acceptable? And it's like, what type of a world are we living in where people need to do that to survive?
Well, that's just it, right? And what type of world are we living in where 0.001% have like 90% of the wealth. That's kind of crazy when there's this many people in the world.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with maybe our culture and just how we've let things go or how things have become with humanity, and I think that's part of it. Do you think so here's the other question though, because this is interesting, because do you think this is bad or problematic?
Taking pleasure in someone else's pain?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Here's what I'm thinking, right? So there's different ways. So like it's like let's say you see like a politician makes a huge mistake and embarrasses himself,
Hmm.
or you see like Elon Musk does something and like loses, 10% of his insane amount of money,
Yeah.
right? And like you laugh at it and you're like, ah, idiot,
Hmm.
whatever, and you feel good about it because they suffered.
Yeah.
That might be one thing versus like seeing like, someone fall down the steps or like get in an accident and like laughing at them. Like I don't
Well,
know if they're different.
yeah. So what I was thinking about is kind of like this whole aspect of positive reframing, as opposed to saying that it's good or bad that we do it. I think it's like part of humanity. We do it. And it's kind of our shadow side, but this is part of all of us. And so, and not all of us, I mean, I'm not saying it's part of everybody. I'm saying it's part of all of us, like the shadow side and the non-shadow side of us.
Yeah.
And so kind of looking at it in a positive reframing thing, this whole idea of cosmic justice or divine justice actually says something really good about us because it means that we believe in fairness and we believe in justice and we root for the underdog and that we have all these really good qualities about us. Yeah, sure. Sometimes they make us do crazy things or they make us have these, you know, maybe not ideal ways of dealing with things, but it actually says something really beautiful about us and that we believe in fairness. We believe that like the good guy should win.
I like that take. I think that, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that maybe it's like part of that is like this feeling that if we're feeling it because of like karma or something like that or cosmic justice, it's like, that sense that like this is an unfair situation.
Hmm.
And so you're kind of getting something you deserve. Yeah, I like that. That's a good way of looking at that. It
Hmm.
wraps it up nicely too.
Yeah,
Because
because
it
it's
is
one of
though.
the yeah,
No,
it's one of
good.
those things like where if we demonize it, then nobody wins from that because it's a part of everybody. Everybody does it to some degree. And so if we demonize it, it only makes it like closeted. So then we do it, we don't tell anybody else about it, we hide it, you know, yeah.
Well, what's funny? This is slightly off topic, but I was thinking about this last night. I think one of the biggest mistakes we make with morality is that we treat it as fixed and set.
Hmm.
And like what I mean by that is like, yeah, like the rules are there, they exist, and that's it. because I don't think morality was never meant to be that. Morality is meant to be something you work on always, and it's reflective. So like you're gonna make mistakes, you're gonna then reflect on it, and then you know how to address that situation maybe better in the future. But it's something you should always be working on because also culture changes, society changes, things change, right?
Hmm.
And so I think in like a situation like this, maybe it is something like that too, where like, it's just something we do, right? It's part of like being human, but also thinking about it and like, am I doing this maybe in a way that's maybe problematic or getting problematic, or is it just something that like, it's kind of natural and it's just one of those things, you know?
Yeah, I like the thought about morality in terms of like good and bad and stuff like that because we think we know what they are, but if you actually define the terms for them, like what's good? Someone who's 51% good, and then if you're less than that, like 49% or something like that, you're bad. But then like so what's the big difference between someone like 51 and 49? What, 2%? And that's like the difference in everything. So when you start looking at the actual things what they mean, you're like, it's kind of just degrees on a
Well, that's the
spectrum.
problem, right? Is like there's nobody who's perfectly good or perfectly evil, I don't think.
Hmm.
I would find that hard to believe. There's always some aspects of both and everybody pretty much, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's usually the case. So it is kind of hard because I think, and I think all the philosophers that talk about morality, they treated it like an ideal. It was something, if you're perfectly virtuous, that's like pretty idealistic.
Hmm.
You know?
I think it's also interesting because these people that we were talking about who we are envious of or jealous of, we think that they have enough of something, but guaranteed to them, they feel like they have not enough of it. And so that's why they keep on going for more and more and more. And so it's
Yeah.
this idea of like, what is enough? Where is enough? Can you actually ever have enough of any of this? And is it kind of chasing those things that can cause issues?
You know what's crazy too is like they're all consequences of the same stupid culture and society. You know what I mean? They're the same, they're consequences of the same ideas and socialization and social conditioning that we're all consequences of.
Hmm.
So like in some sense too, it's like it's the system that we're in also kind of promotes, I think, this type of stuff, or the way we live kind of promotes that a little bit. So it's like, yeah, it's gonna happen.
Yeah, I found it really interesting. At one time in my life, I had met like a few really wealthy people, and they had like built businesses and done all this stuff that people would have been really like envious of. And I was talking with them, and like the reason they did it is because they were compulsive. They couldn't not do it. Like they couldn't sit still, they
Yeah.
couldn't sleep, they were bored out of their mind. They kept on doing this because it just like they were, and it's almost like you wouldn't want to live
Scratches
that
some itch,
life.
sad. Yeah,
Yeah, you
yeah.
wouldn't want to live that life because even though they have the trappings of wealth, like the discomfort that they had to live through in order to get there is just not worth it.
Well, it's like, yeah, I mean, like Elon Musk was like sleeping at Twitter for like weeks when he first bought it. It's like this kind of like mentality, like have to work 24/7 and keep going and he doesn't need the business. He doesn't need money. He doesn't need any he could literally stop doing anything.
And
Yeah,
it's
everything.
and it's not just him, it's like throughout history. It
Yeah.
was I think Michelangelo or Da Vinci who said if people knew how hard I worked to attain my mastery, they wouldn't think it was so great after all.
Yeah, look at Da Vinci's. I mean, they were constantly doing stuff, and they were doing, and most of this, most of the stuff we actually like cherish as their works of art was stuff they were commissioned to do so they could do other stuff. Like,
Hmm.
it's like that wasn't even the stuff they probably cared about the most.
Hmm.
It's kind of interesting.
And
Yeah,
here's the other cool thing. So like all of these people, these great historical figures, they also took pleasure in other people's pain. Like it's part of what makes us human is our ability to
yeah.
actually like imagine that there is some divine retribution. Because I mean, other animals, if they don't have the ability to reason and to see things like that, they probably wouldn't experience it. Like they might hear
Well,
an animal screaming, but who knows if they can process what that
you know
means.
what? Yeah, I always liked like in John Stuart Mill's uh philosophy, like he talks about how like this imagination is an important part of like what he calls like higher pleasures because we can imagine things like, ideal justice or a just state or like what fairness is or, what a good society looks like. And because we can imagine that, we can also then evaluate our current situation and we can work to improve those things because we have some ideal, right? So we can be dissatisfied and then we find things that we can change that can maybe make it a little closer. And so theoretically, it's also a positive thing because it's also a way that we actually better ourselves long term as humanity. We
Hmm.
might not see those changes necessarily like right now, but like it's a way we can work towards making things better by understanding these concepts and reflecting on them and then trying to change the world around us.
Hmm. How about that?
It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe it's not a terrible thing. I don't know. I think it is kind of part of us though. Yeah.
Hmm.
I could definitely see
Definitely.
it getting bad. Like, if this is like something you sought out all the time, to take pleasure, maybe that's a problem. But otherwise, yeah. Yeah, it's kind of
Hmm.
interesting.
And then how about we didn't even discuss at all finding
We
pleasure in the
haven't
small
got,
things in
I
life.
know, I know, I haven't gotten there yet. I know it's hard, isn't it? Too many
Yeah.
things.
Well,
This one I think is crucial to like living, especially nowadays, I think,
hmm
because we're just like bombarded with so much stuff. Like
So
there's
not
so
even
many
so much stuff,
choices.
so much wanting. It's always stuff that you
Yeah.
don't have.
Yeah.
Like you're not being reminded of all the things you have. You're being reminded
Yeah.
of all the stuff you don't have. So it's just
Well,
like this incredible want.
what's crazy? I was thinking about this the other day too. What's crazy too is even when you get something you really wanted for a long time, it's like the next year the new model comes out.
Hmm
Like it seems like every it's
hmm
like that now, or like, a couple years in some cases, but whatever. And it's like kind of funny because it's like it is like this constant just like attempt to create desires and wants in us that never go away, essentially. It's
Yeah.
like this cycle.
Well,
Yeah.
it's really interesting because things seem a lot more interesting when we want them than when we actually have them. And learning to recognize that is something that can help you appreciate the things you have, but also appreciate the things you don't have. Because all of those things that you think your life will be better when you get them is just not true. Like you won't even think about them once you get them. But the
Yeah.
wanting them and the imagining that your life is better, that's the better moment right now. And then you can also take a look at all the things that you have that you don't care about and be like, hey, these were once things. Like I always look at it when people are like so excited to quit their job, And it's like there once upon a time you were so excited to get this job. Like
Yeah.
and things change that drastically, but it's going to happen with the new job as well. Like it's really great
Yeah.
now, and then however many years in the future, you're going to be like, oh, I can't wait to leave this. Good.
Well, we love new stuff. We love the shiny object syndrome, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So yeah, this concept, I think it's like Mudita or something like that.
Oh
Sorry,
yeah.
pronunciation's not great. Refers to
Enjoying the mundane.
yeah, like quiet
Hmm
pleasures found in ordinary everyday experiences. And this is this is something like every ancient philosopher has discussed and talked about the value of, right? And I think it is important because it's also like not only are these all these wants, but also especially like life is busy and it's so easy to get caught up in that busyness of like constantly trying to learn or to, grow or to, get more or gain more. I mean, and especially like nowadays, I think we all are constantly have like kind of struggle with thoughts of like trying to advance all the time. And like, so we never really are present and trying to kind of step back and take that pleasure in like your cup of coffee in the morning, like actually enjoying it, sitting for a second and actually just having your coffee and enjoying it, or
hmm
like doing journaling or like taking
Doing
a walk
anything without
outside.
a cell phone.
Yeah, literally, right? Without a distraction right in front of you, looking at once.
Dude, it's like I was watching some people fishing, I remember, and they were all on their phone waiting for the fish to strike. And I was like, that defeats the whole purpose of going fishing. Like, why do you even bother? Because like
You're supposed to
fishing
talk while you're waiting.
or just enjoy the peace of the
Yeah,
nature, like the quietness, the silence, all of that stuff. And it's just like it defeats the whole purpose because you're busy just scrolling and doing whatever, and then the fish strikes and you're like, oh, yeah.
yeah, yeah. It is, it's crazy now though, because I think like dude, we live in a time where we have mobile theaters with basically infinite amounts of content
And
on
yet
us
it
at
feels
all
not
times.
enough. It's like I've watched everything. How come there's
I
nothing
know,
good
right?
on?
But like, dude, I was thinking about that. Do you know what I mean? Like, dude, I was thinking about that. Back, like, you go back, not even probably that far, 100 years or so, and like, dude, seeing plays like stories like that told to you, like acted out, or like even books, dude, were a rarity. So I
hmm
think like it's kind of crazy that we take it for granted because there's so much of it, and it's such a distraction too, and it's so easy to get distracted and just like miss out on actually living your life and being there. It's kind of nuts.
Mm. So how does one enjoy the mundane?
I think like the the small delights thing we did is a great method, which is, we talked about it so many times, but I think it's worth mentioning, right? Where you just like try and pay attention to like the little delights, little pleasures in life, like a good cup of coffee, nice sunrise, it could be anything, like you petted your dog in the morning. And then at night, write down three of them, like 3 to 5, I think it is, right? And it gives you a chance to like reflect on the good things. And we found like when we first started doing this, remember, it was hard to like think of them at first. And then it was like there was so many because it makes you more aware of all these small pleasures that happen all the time, every day. And it really does improve your positivity. It's insane how much it works. And it's the
Hmm.
simplest thing to do. It took like what, like maybe 5 minutes?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big one. I also like just looking around where I live, where I work, where I do stuff, and just seeing all the stuff that I take for granted now. Like all the stuff that I wanted that was like so huge, and now I just take it for granted. And being like,
Yeah.
wow, that and that and that and that. Holy cow. Yeah, I really, oh my goodness, I do have a lot of good stuff. How about that?
Yeah. It is funny, right? We all wish the that new excitement, that newness feeling would last with everything.
Hmm.
But it just doesn't because that's not life, right? Like you get comfortable with things that you've been around a long time, whether it's people or objects or whatever. And I think part of this, like finding pleasure in the ordinary everyday experiences, is also combating that tendency of ours to take things for granted, right? And get comfortable and kind of then once we're comfortable, ignore the stuff that's important to us.
Hmm.
Yeah, kind of nuts.
Yeah,
As
so
it
there you
focus our
have
brain.
it. How to take pleasure in other people's misfortune and also how to enjoy the small things in life. That's it. That would
Yeah.
be a great book title. How to take pleasure in other people's misfortune.
And while enjoying the small things.
Uh, how to win friends and take pleasure in other people's misfortune. That's a good one. Anyways, that's all for this episode of the Existential Stoic Podcast. Until next time, I'm Randy. That's Danny. I'll see you later, Danny.
Later, Andy.